Hey guys, what's up? Tori here. So I'm here to go ahead and do my labor and delivery story of Bowen. It's nighttime right now, so both kids are in bed sleeping. So this is just a good opportunity for me to do it. So um, I'm just gonna go ahead and basically tell the story of how Bowen's labor and delivery went. I went in to be induced at midnight on February 8th, so I had to be at the hospital at midnight, no sooner. Um, so it's a stupid insurance company thing, so the insurance companies wouldn't be charged an extra day of being in the hospital, which is dumb, but anyway, so I had to be at the hospital at midnight, and because at midnight the main entrance doors are closed, we had to go in through the emergency room entrance. So we went in through the emergency room and then we went up to labor and delivery. We got up there and um, they brought me to my room. It was just Matt and I beforehand. We had dropped Braylee off with my aunt and uncle. She stayed with my aunt and uncle. Um, and so I was brought to my room. I went and got changed into my hospital gown and got all settled. And then my nurse came in and just went over some stuff with me. I had to sign like a couple more paperwork things. I had done pre-admissions, so there wasn't like as much to sign and fill out ahead of time as there was with Braylee because we didn't get a chance to do pre-admissions with Braylee. Um, so that part went a little faster, but still there was like they had to get me like fully admitted, so that part took a little bit, and then they were finally able to begin like the induction process, and they started by getting me hooked onto the monitor to monitor both Bowen and also monitor to see if I was contracting at all. So they got me on the monitor, and then the nurse also checked to see if I was dilated at all. And upon going in, I was like 2 centimeters dilated and 70% effaced, which wasn't a whole lot of change from my previous doctor appointment. I was dilated maybe like a half centimeter more. Um, but so she checked me and had me on the monitor for a while, and I was on the monitor for about a half hour or so, and then the nurse came back and was like, because they wanted to start the process by giving me what is called Cytotec, which is a pill to soften the cervix, which is how they started my labor with Braylee too when I went in to be induced with Braylee. But I was already apparently contracting like 6 times within 10 minutes, which most of those contractions I was not even feeling. Every once in a while, I would feel my stomach get kind of hard and tight, but that was it. I would just feel that once in a while. Like it wasn't like I was feeling contraction after contraction after contraction. Like I was not feeling most of the contractions that the nurse said I was having. So I was like, that's news to me. That's interesting. Like I was pretty much already contracting when I went in, and I was contracting too much, so they could not give me the side effects. So the nurse had me drink a couple of cups of water. Like she just told me like chug them. That didn't slow my contractions. So then she put me on IV fluids and was like they were sending them into me really fast to try to slow the contractions down, and so they could give me that side attack. And even after all the fluids, drinking all that water, my contractions still were not really slowing down. They maybe slowed down a hair, but they weren't slowing down at all. So then the nurse came back. She was like, I had to talk to, because my doctor wasn't in yet at that time. So to talk to a midwife, I think that was in at the time, and asked, you know, what should we do to like get her labor going, because we can't give her the side attack with her contracting the way she is. So my nurse came back and said that it was decided that they were just going to go ahead and start me on Pitocin instead. They were just going to start me off with like the lowest dose possible, which was like 1 milliliter an hour or something like that. Like it was like just a little bit, just to basically get things started. And so that's kind of how things started. And once she started the Pitocin, she was like, just try and rest and sleep as much as you can, because obviously I went in at midnight, so like this was like an all night thing. The low dose Pitocin, like I remember feeling like contractions a little bit, but like they weren't like uncomfortable. I was actually able to kind of sleep a little bit here and there and get some sleep. Um, and the nurse came back in periodically, and pretty much every time she came back in, she like would up the pitocin a little bit. So like at one point she just upped it from 1 to 2, and then like each time she came in, she actually kind of like doubled it. So then like she came in again later, and like she went from like 2 to 4. um and like I could tell each time they like the pitocin increased because I would feel the contractions a little more and a little more. um and then it eventually got to a point where the contractions were like I was feeling them enough that it was hard to sleep through, but like I still wasn't like in excruciating pain or anything. Like I was getting up to go to the bathroom periodically because they had pumped me full of so much fluids and all of that. Um, and I also want to point out that like I talked with the nurse like ahead of time that I really wanted to get the epidural this time around, and I because I didn't get time to have it with Braylee. And the nurse was like, yeah, it's like already in your pre-admission stuff. Like we have the note that like, yeah, you went really fast last time. And so like this time like you like we're hoping to get you there. And like she did check me periodically um for dilation too. Um she she came in and checked me at one point, and when she started like upping the pitocin more and I was feeling the contractions more, she came in and checked me at one point, and I was like 3 centimeters dilated, and she was like, you know, you still got plenty of time for the epidural. I don't remember what time it was. It was before the shift change because the shift change happens at 7 o'clock in the morning. So it was before the shift change happened. Um, that she had checked me and I was 3 centimeters dilated. So I think it was probably around like 6:30 ish that she checked me, and I was like I said, I was like 3 centimeters dilated. And I was really starting to feel the contractions by this point too. Like they were starting to be a little bit more uncomfortable, but like I still was kind of like, I'm not sure if I'm quite ready for the epidural yet. Because like they weren't like horribly uncomfortable. Um, and the nurse told me, she's like, any like you can pretty much get the epidural. Like we have the pitocin really going, so like you can pretty much get the epidural at any time you want at this point. Like as soon as you want it, like just let us know. Like we can get it to you. And I was just like, okay. So like I pretty much then just decided like as soon as I was like getting to the point where I was getting uncomfortable, I was just gonna call him back in. And that didn't take too long to happen. Um it was getting pretty close to 7 o'clock, and I was like the contractions were starting to get really uncomfortable. And the thing is, the contractions with Bowen for me felt very different than the contractions with Braylee. With Braylee, I had a lot of back labor, and like I just remember like them feeling like my whole stomach too. Like I felt them more in my whole stomach, and then I had horrible back labor with her. Like I felt it more in my butt and back and stuff with Braylee. Um, and it took a long time before the contractions got like really intense with Braylee too. Whereas like with Bowen, I went from like barely feeling the contractions and them like hardly bothering me to suddenly they just got really uncomfortable really quick. And I was feeling the contractions with Bowen pretty much all in my lower, like my whole stomach would get hard and tight, but like I was feeling the pain like all in my lower abdomen. Like it was just all low that I was feeling it. And like it was like it felt like an extremely horrible, intense period cramp. Um, when the contractions started getting uncomfortable. And like I don't remember them feeling quite that way with Braylee. Like, they felt very different this time with Bowen. And like I said, it was just all in my lower abdomen, lower stomach that I was feeling the contractions. Like I wasn't really like the only part up top I was feeling was like a hardening and tightening. Otherwise, like the actual pain itself was just all in my lower abdomen, which was so different from Braylee. And I had like no back labor with Bowen at all, where I had a lot of back labor with Braylee. Um, but yeah, as soon as the contractions started getting really uncomfortable, I paged the nurse like right away, and I was like, I'm ready for the epidural. I want it. And my nurse, like, it was like right as the shift change was happening. So the nurse that I had like all through the night what came in then with the nurse that I was going to have for all during the day. Um, and they came in together and they were like, okay, like, well, like we paged the anesthesiologist, he's on his way in, and they were like, you're like, it didn't take too long for you to want it. And I'm like, I know it's getting really uncomfortable. Like, I want to get it now before um it's too late. And so, and like, because it was like right in the middle, right as the shift change was about to happen, like my night nurse checked me again, and I think I had dilated to about 4 centimeters. I had dilated another centimeter like in that half hour. Um, and then I was also starting to have a little bit of bloody show um, as well when she checked me. So she's like, yeah, it's probably a really good time for you to get your epidural. She's like, do you feel like your water broke at all? I'm like, no, I haven't felt like wet or anything at all. Like my water has not broken yet. And they're like, okay, that's at least still in contact. But like I said, like the contractions were getting super uncomfortable. It did not take long for the anesthesiologist to get in there, which was a really good thing. Like I think he was already on site because I think he was probably like already there to like prepare for like, you know, doing surgeries and stuff throughout the day. So it didn't take him long to come up and do the epidural. And the they switched, and the nurses were able to switch off. So then my day nurse that I had, my night nurse's name was Jessie, and then my day nurse's name was Sam. So Jessie had then left, and then I got Sam in, and Jessie left pretty much after she checked me and stuff, and then like her and Sam like basically like got things kind of switched off between the two of them while in the room with me, and then Jessie was able to leave, and I had Sam, and then Sam was the one that helped me like with the epidural. She had me sit up and get to the edge of the bed and get like prepared for the anesthesiologist and stuff like that. Then the anesthesiologist came in, and I had to quick sign a paper to be able to get the epidural. And then the anesthesiologist was able to administer the epidural. And like I've heard so many different stories about receiving epidurals. I've heard some people say that it's like awful, painful. I've heard people say it's like nothing. I honestly thought getting the epidural was nothing. Like, but I also have like zero fear of needles, and getting shots and stuff like does not bother me normally. So for me, getting the epidural to me was like nothing. Like it didn't really hurt that much. Like I remember feeling some like pressure and stuff, like because they do give you a dose of lidocaine first to like numb your back up before they actually put in the needle that like puts in the epidural medication. Um, so like to me, getting the epidural really wasn't that bad. Um, but yeah, they put in the epidural, and then they had me lay flat down on, well, not completely flat down on my back. They put like pillows behind me so I wasn't completely flat on my back, but I had to be laying down because I was told that I guess if you like stay sitting up, then the epidural medication will just go like straight to your butt, and it won't like help take care of the contraction pain as well as like numb you lower and stuff. Like it'll just like all go to one place, so they keep you laying flat so the medicine kind of spreads and works its way to your abdomen and like waist, and then also will go down to like to your feet and stuff, like to completely numb you. So like I was kind of on my back, and like I remember just laying there and feeling like the pain like get less and less. Then all of a sudden it was to a point where I was like, oh, I'm not feeling the contractions anymore. And Matt was like, you seem way more relaxed now than you did when you were in labor with Braylee. And I was like, I literally said, just straight up said to him, I'm like, that epidural is magical. Like I felt so much better, so much more comfortable. But epidural definitely is a very weird feeling thing because like you suddenly like I remember I could still move my toes and stuff, but like I couldn't move my legs. Like they were really, really heavy and numb feeling, obviously. And like I yeah, I could not move my legs. Like I could not like roll myself over and stuff. And my nurse pretty much stayed with me because she like would help, because she would like turn me and like rotate me a little bit to like keep moving me to like keep the medicine like flowing and stuff. Um so she pretty much stayed with me, and then at one point she had to step out for a little bit. And she stepped out, and she was like, just like, you know, page me like if you start feeling like a lot of pressure, or if you feel like wet or warm or anything like that. And then And like, yeah, I laid there like with Matt and just being like, oh, like I feel so much more comfortable, so much better, like, and I was just like, yeah, the epidural's magical. And after a while, like I did suddenly start feeling like a lot of pressure like down lower. Like I was like, oh, like I'm like starting to feel something. Like and it was like with each contraction I would feel like a bunch of pressure. So then I paged the nurse and I was like, I'm feeling like a lot of pressure. Um and and stuff. And so she was like, okay, I'll be right in. And she came in and she checked me, and I believe I was like, she checked me again to see where I was, and I was having more bloody show. And then like she checked me and I was like, I think I was like 7 centimeters dilated. So they were like, yeah, we're gonna page your doctor, which my doctor's name is Dr. Van Hees. We're gonna page Dr. Van Hees and get him up here. Like now, like I don't think it's gonna be too much longer. Like you're pretty much fully effaced and like you're getting close. And so they paged my doctor, and I and like I remember I was actually starting to kind of feel some contraction pain again. Like it wasn't like horrible. I just like every time I got a contraction I was feeling like a whole lot of pressure, and like it was almost like I was feeling like Bowen like starting to like move and push down on me. And so like it was like getting more uncomfortable and painful and like crampy a little bit too again. And so it was like, I mean, it wasn't like excruciating or anything, but it's like I remember starting to feel that and being like, oh man. Um, and my nurse was really great. She was helping me kind of like breathe through the contractions a little bit because, like I said, I was starting to kind of like get a little bit, like I said, I was feeling a bunch of pressure and getting kind of uncomfortable again. Um, and I remember it like taking a little bit for Dr. Van Hees to get in there, and they were like, yeah, like if he's not and then another nurse came in because they were like, yeah, we're gonna start setting up and getting ready because I think you're gonna be having your baby really soon here. So they were like setting stuff up like all in the room and stuff and getting things ready. And they were like, his and the other nurse came in, she was like, Dr. Van Hees is here, like he'll be in shortly. And she was like, oh good, because like if he wasn't here by like 9 o'clock, like I was gonna be like, we need to page him again and get him in here soon. And my nurse then, she was like, I'm gonna just check you again a minute. And she checked me again, and I was like 8 centimeters. And she was like, yeah, like, and like when I hit 8 centimeters, like I remember like it starting, like I was actually feeling pain again with the contractions. And it was like I was like breathing through them. And she was like, just keep breathing through them, you're doing really good. Like my nurse was really great, like coaching me. So I'm kind of convinced that the epidural, because like it went fast. Like I, from the time Bowen was born, from when I got the epidural, I don't even think it was maybe an hour tops. That I even had the epidural like in place and in effect. So I'm not entirely convinced that the epidural had time to be like in 100% effect. um, on me, because I still definitely felt a lot. I mean, it was definitely not near as intense as it was with Braylee because I had nothing with Braylee, but I still was feeling a lot. And she was like, yeah, those last couple centimeters can be really, can, be a lot to get through. They can be pretty intense. So just like keep breathing. And like I said, I was starting to feel a whole lot of pressure. Like I was actually almost kind of like wanting to push a little bit, and so like I was kind of like resisting the urge a little bit. um and then my doctor did get in, and as soon as my doctor got in, they checked me again, and I actually was fully dilated. So they put my legs up into the stirrups because I couldn't do it for myself. I was totally numb, couldn't move my legs. My legs were very heavy. um they put my legs up into the stirrups, and like my doctor was like getting ready. And I remember like anytime I felt a contraction, like I actually, like I could feel pressure, and I felt him pushing down there, and I was like wanting to push. Like I remember like contraction, like I almost was like I actually almost was kind of like pushing a little bit when I would feel it, because like I at that point was like having a hard time resisting. um And then finally, when my doctor was like ready and all that, the next contraction I had, they told me, okay, go ahead and push, and I started pushing. Um, and I did not push for very long. And like I said, I am pretty convinced that the epidural didn't have time to take like 100% effect, because I definitely could still feel him coming out. Like I felt, I mean, it was mostly a lot of pressure, but I definitely still felt some like burning and stinging sensations too. Like I said, it wasn't as intense as it was with Braylee, because I had nothing with Braylee, but I still could feel it. Like I could still feel him crowning and all of that. Like I still felt it. Like I said, just not as intense, but like I was like, and I was like kind of like moaning, and like I wasn't screaming as much as I did with Braylee, again because it wasn't as intense, but I was still like moaning and kind of just being like, I don't know, almost like crying a little bit, I guess is maybe a way to put it, even though I didn't like actually like cry. Um, and I think I pushed maybe like, it was maybe like 2 or 3 contractions for his head worth of pushing, and then after that I just had to push out his shoulders. And I mean, like I said, I did not push for very long. I pushed minimal times, and he was out. He shot out fast and quick, and he came out at 9:08 a.m. and I was like so relieved. And he came out and they put him right up on me. He wasn't able to get all the way up to my chest right away because his cord wasn't quite long enough, so he just kind of was down like on my belly more. But he came out and he was crying. They did have to like suction him a whole bunch. Because like he would like cry and then kind of stop a little bit, and they suctioned him a little bit more, then he would cry more. But I mean, he came out crying and healthy. He came out great, and I remember just being like, "Hi, babe!" Like he came out, and I was like, "Hi, baby! Oh my gosh! Like you're here!" Like I said, I still felt a majority of it. And like I said, I definitely moaned and did make sound and stuff when I pushed him out and all that. Like I still felt a decent amount of it. But yeah, they put him up on me and all that. Um, and actually, the way he came out, he had a little bit of bruising on his face. The way he came out, he was like, his face was kind of like up against my tailbone. So, like, they think that his face like kind of bumped my tailbone a little bit on the way out. Because he did have a tiny bit of bruising on his face, which actually like faded as the day went on. Like, by the end of the day, you couldn't even see it anymore. Um, but that was interesting. But then, yeah, I don't know how many stitches actually got put in. My doctor was doing a fair amount of stitching on there. He said I had a second-degree tear, but then he said I also had a few other lacerations in other areas that he had to stitch up as well. So he was like working on repairing lacerations and tearing and stuff, while waiting for my placenta to be ready to be delivered. Um, And then, like, once the placenta was kind of like more ready to be delivered, then they had Matt cut the umbilical cord, Bowen's umbilical cord. Then they were able to move him up onto my chest more for skin to skin. Um, and then there was actually like, I didn't feel any of him stitching me up, obviously, because I had the epidural in place, except there was like one spot he went to stitch, and I felt that one. Like, I all of a sudden felt him doing it, and I literally like made a face and was like, like, that one hurt. Like, my doctor kind of chuckled. He was like, epidurals are crazy things. Like, apparently everywhere is not mixed with that one spot. And I'm like, yeah. I'm like, so can you like do that really quick? Because yeah, I'm feeling that. um, but yeah, he like stitched me up, and then he was like, all right, I think your placenta is ready to deliver. And he started kind of like tugging on it. He's like, why don't you push a couple times? Um, and it didn't come right away. So then he like finished his stitching that he was doing, and then once he was done with the stitching, he was like, all right, I think the placenta is like actually ready to come now. And then I actually had to push the placenta out, which was so different, because with Braylee, like, I didn't even feel it come out. Like, it just fell out, and all of a sudden I hear the doctor being like, oh, placenta's here, and it's like, oh. Like, with Bowen though, he made me push. Like, I had to push his placenta out. Like, I had to push a couple of times to get his placenta out. And I did like actually feel it coming. Like it didn't really hurt coming out, but like I still felt it coming out. Um, and like I said, I had to push a couple of times. And after the placenta was out, he actually like showed me his placenta where I didn't even see Braylee's placenta at all, but he kind of like showed me. He was like, "Look, that's where the baby was and all that." And he's like, "And I'm just checking to make sure there's not like any like pieces missing from it or anything." He's like, "It all looks pretty much intact and good." Um, and then after that, they pretty much were able to clean me up and get me all situated into the bed. They actually had to, because like I said, I had the epidural, so they actually had to like move me, scooch me up in the bed more, and then they were able to like sit me up and get me comfortable and all that, and they were able to like stop the epidural medication and all that. Sorry, Bowen was making noise on the monitor, but yeah, so then yeah, I got cleaned up and I was just then able to snuggle my baby, and I was able to start trying to nurse him and all of that. I had a lot of skin to skin time with him, and I was able to try nursing him, and he like nursed like a champ right away. And then that's also when his tongue tie was discovered too. Was shortly after I got done nursing him, and then they went to like weigh him and stuff. The nurse went to weigh him and stuff, and she was like, "Oh, he has quite a significant tongue tie." And so when he had his circumcision, he also at the same time had that tongue tie clipped, so he no longer has it. But yeah, so I mean, after nursing him and stuff, then yeah, they weighed him and all that and did like all of his initial like look over checkup stuff. And then obviously they were able to wrap him up, and then Matt actually took him after that because obviously I had him for like the whole first while. Um, but yeah, that pretty much is how everything went. It went fast and smooth. Like I said, Bowen was born at 9:08 in the morning. And probably by the time they actually like started me on like the Pitocin and stuff, it probably was somewhere between like 1 and 2 in the morning. So really I was not in labor for all that long, and I did not push for all that long. I remember the nurse actually saying like, your body just knows how to deliver babies. Like your body just delivers them quick and does things quick. And I'm very thankful I got the epidural this time, even though I'm not entirely convinced that it was 100% effect, but definitely I think it was easier this time with the epidural. I will say, like, I do remember my back was like a little achy once in a while, um, like throughout the day of Bowen's delivery, like after the epidural had worn off, like the spot where the epidural went in was a little achy once in a while. But now it's been fine since. I do have a nice big old bruise where the epidural went in that it's fading now, but it's still there. Um, but I mean, I don't regret getting the epidural because it definitely I think made things easier, more tolerable. Like I said, it wasn't as horrible. It wasn't like as intense as it was with Braylee because I didn't have anything with her, and I'm definitely thankful I had something with Bowen because he was much bigger than Braylee because Braylee was only 4 pounds 13 ounces, whereas Bowen was 7 pounds 5 ounces. So there was a difference there in size. So I'm definitely grateful I was able to get it. But everything went so great and so smooth. I mean, obviously, other than tearing, but I tore with Braylee as well. So, like, it just, for me to heal from tearing, it's not any different this time around than it was last time around. But everything went great, and I'm very happy and grateful that it did go so smooth. And then once we were all settled for a while, then we were able to start calling family and all that. And they were able to come visit and all that because of the restrictions being lifted. So it was great to then have Braylee be able to come meet him and all of that. And yeah, this experience definitely was very different from Braylee's because I was also in labor longer with Braylee than I was with Bowen. Bowen's labor was even shorter than Braylee's was. So like I said, it was a very different experience. My whole pregnancy with Bowen was very different from Braylee's, and then the delivery was definitely very different from Braylee's as well. So it's just kind of amazing how different things can be from one pregnancy to the next. But yeah, so that's basically the whole story. If you guys have any questions or anything, you can always leave them in the comment section. I'd be happy to answer. Um, But yeah, so that is everything. I'm going to end this here before it gets any longer because we're already at almost a half an hour. So that is it, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.